What's up, guys? It is finally time to put this Speed Daddy headers series to bed. So first things first, if you're not familiar with this series and you have not seen the other videos so that you're not quite up to date, I will post a link up here as well as down in the description to the full Speed Daddy playlist. Please go back and watch all of those to bring yourself up to speed, and then I'll see you back here. You back? Okay, let's go ahead and finish this thing up. As you know, we took several baselines to compare before we started this, and since the headers have been installed and I made sure everything was good, I've been going back and doing all of them. So the first thing that I compared was actually a before and after data log. Okay, so here is the before data log. If you look through here, here's pretty much all steady state driving. Everything was pretty good there except for some long-term fuel trim numbers that were a little bit high. Nothing to see there much. Then over here in the wide open throttle pull, we can look right in here and you can see where at wide open it is seeing knock, because right there's your KR numbers, and it hits a peak KR of, it looks like 4 degrees. Other than that, short-term and fuel trims are short-term and long-term fuel trims are pretty straight. Everything else looks pretty normal. In contrast, here is a similar run after the headers were done. We can go in here and look. One thing I am seeing here is that the fuel trims are decidedly more negative, as if it's running kind of rich, which we'll look into there. But then if you look over here, this is your wide open throttle run, and right in here is where you're seeing KR. But if I scroll back and forth here, I am seeing a peak KR of 3.3 degrees. There's your number right there. And that is pretty substantially less, I suppose, than what it had before. Is it a great number? No. But that shows at least a small amount of improvement. Like I said, I don't see much else really to look at, other than it looks to me like the long-term and short-term fuel trims have gone a bit negative, versus like a stock tune right here. We had mostly positive fuel trims, it looks like. So definitely a little bit of something screwy right there, but other than that, the main takeaway as far as this goes is that we have dropped a little bit of KR. Okay, so as you can see, the data log shows a little bit of something going on there, but not all the information we need. But we did install a boost gauge and take before and after boost measurements. And an interesting thing about that is it does appear that we've lost about a pound. We're down from 5 PSI, which is what I had rechecked the day before, to 4 PSI with the headers. That does indicate that there may be something going on there. So the next thing I did was take it back to the drag strip. The drag strip, there was definitely a more noticeable increase, as our previous best time was a 9.49, so basically 9.5 seconds at 74.6 miles per hour, whereas this time we turned a 9.22 at 77 miles an hour. That is a pretty obvious difference there, and definitely tells us that the headers seem to have done something. So the final thing to do, and the most important thing probably for a performance modification, was I made the move to take it back and have it dynoed again. Now, if you look at the before and afters of the dyno, initially I saw about what I expected to see. We went from 210 horsepower to 224. And we went from 233 foot-pounds of torque to 232. So not a big torque difference at all, slight horsepower increase. So I said at that point, I was like, oh, well, that looks pretty good. About what I would expect from a bolt-on modification. But then the dyno operator actually was like, no, 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 no. But come look at the graph. So I'm going to put those graphs up right now so you can see what I'm talking about. But basically, if you look at the graphs up to about between 4 and 5 grand, the horsepower peak is right in the horsepower peak is right between the, say, 4 and 5,000 RPM range. And the peak isn't much different. But if you look above its peak in the befores and afters, from about 45 to 55, there is a huge difference. It gained almost 30 horsepower at, I believe, 5,500 RPMs. That is not unsubstantial. That shows that there was a definite restriction in the very upper end of the RPM range that this seems to have taken care of. So that was very surprising. So, final thoughts on this whole procedure. Basically, I would have to say, first of all, Speed Daddies are more expensive than they appear to be because you just cannot expect to buy them for $200 and throw them on the car and be done. I think all said and done, we were closer to $300 as far as with all the mods that it took to get it right. It was a huge pain in the butt to install. Power logs would be much easier, and from what I hear, even ZZP headers are much easier to install because they fit better. And basically, the Speed Daddy headers just aren't built very consistently. I did talk to a couple people when I ran into the problem I ran into with mine, and it appears that sometimes they come fit pretty well and they go together really easy. Sometimes they don't. So that is just something that you have to be prepared for, I suppose. So as far as our before and after numbers, it's evident that the headers did do something. We definitely gained horsepower. We gained speed in the 8th mile. So for sure, they work. Is the amount that you get from them worth the amount of work it takes to do them? That's going to depend on you. There are definitely easier ways to go. I think power logs fit a lot more easily and would be much simpler to do. And I have not tested power logs, so I cannot tell you what the difference in power would be between the two. But I feel like from just what I've experienced here, that headers are the way to go. But that being said, I am really becoming very curious to what the ZZP headers are like. The price difference is huge, but if you take the pain in the butt installation out of this whole equation here, then you're looking at potentially something much more worth doing. The other issue is I do not see these being very long-lived, and I will let you know how they go. I will keep them on there for a while, but they were under so much tension being forced into place like that I have to expect they're probably going to stress crack after they heat cycle a few times. The metal's not very thick, so that would be something I would just expect to see. If that's not a problem with the ZZP headers and you can run the ZZP headers indefinitely, then are they worth the extra money? Probably. What I may try to do at some point in the future is maybe get my hands on a set of the ZZP headers and try to test them alongside these. We have these numbers now, so we have this comparison to go off of, but that's about where I'm going to leave it. If you need to make some power and you don't have a lot of money to put into it, and you don't mind some fabrication, and you don't mind a huge headache and the potential that the headers aren't going to last that long, then these are a viable option. Are these a viable option for your average everyday owner of a Grand Prix that just drives around and drives to the grocery store and everything? Probably not. I don't think I would recommend them. And if you're in the higher end where performance is super important to you and you have the money, I probably would also say don't go with these, because I'm guessing the ZZP headers are going to be better. Hopefully that was enough information to answer a lot of the questions people have had about these. If I missed something, if you have any additional questions, make sure to let me know down in the comment section, as I will read and respond to all of them. And if you have any other ideas for other parts you'd like me to test in a similar way or something like that, let me know that down in the comments also. And if you enjoyed this series at all, or if you just enjoyed me torturing myself mentally and financially for your amusement, then for sure make sure you like this video and let me know that you liked it. And consider becoming a Patreon or a patron over on Patreon, or buying some of my merchandise shirts, as they do help me recoup a little bit of the cost off of these projects. But we are finally done. I am out of here. Thank you so much for sticking with this whole series and seeing how it turned out. I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.